So we have to talk about Tesla stock because a lot of individuals are watching Tesla stock and they're saying, what the heck is going on? For example, today we saw Tesla stock pretty much push upwards, but then ultimately close at around the same areas that we saw Tesla close the day prior. And look guys, I hate to be that I told you so type of guy or, go over here giving myself pats on the back, but essentially what we're seeing take place for December is ultimately in sync with what I've said was going to take place for Tesla stock for December. I said December is going to be completely different from what we saw in November. Back in November, I said, hey, things are going to start pushing up tremendously higher. We saw the overall markets push up higher. We saw Tesla do almost 30% for November. Things were great. But I said, December is going to be a completely different story. It's going to be choppy and things are going to ebb and flow, but ultimately just close a small, minuscule amount higher. And so that's what we're currently seeing. And I want to go ahead and talk about what did we see today that is a bit concerning about, the overall outlook for the economy and things that we should be mindful of. And look, guys, I want to provide a friendly reminder that I'm not one of those individuals that goes ahead and makes content every day saying that Tesla stock is going to go to the moon. I know there's a lot of individuals on X.com or YouTube that every single video they put out, they just say that Tesla stock is going to the moon. And I understand, look, there's a lot of zealotry for Tesla and I get it, right? I love Tesla. I have exposure to Tesla in my long-term portfolio. I'm bullish to Tesla as well going into the long term, but we can't be agnostic to what's currently taking place. And of course, I would get a lot more views if every video was just about, hey, Tesla stock is going up and trying to point to any small little detail about Tesla and kind of spinning that around to be a very positive thing for the stock. But we have to have some integrity here. We have to talk about what's actually taking place. Now, if you guys have recently watched videos on my channel, then you guys probably saw this chart I shared before about SPX or the S&P 500 index having this area of resistance where I said it's most likely going to be a challenge. And of course, technical analysis is not used to predict the markets. That's something that a lot of individuals get wrong. It's kind of just to measure what's currently going on. And I said, hey, this is going to pose a significance of resistance going forward. And until we break above it, things are not looking that great. And so what we see with the S&P 500 are, things getting rejected downwards. But I want to go ahead and get away from the technicals and kind of looking at the charts and talk about what's going on in the overall economy. See, yesterday we had the job openings report, and what we saw were that job openings were contracting, and now the market reacted very bullish to this news. Why? Well, it's in sync with what the Federal Reserve wants. They want the labor markets to kind of contract a bit. This way they could help continue in this battle against inflation. And so the markets love this. They said, oh, okay, look, jobs actually contracted more than what was expected. This is necessarily good in the short term. But one of the things I mentioned in yesterday's video is that while this is good in the short term, long term, this is bad news. And as we keep moving forward and we see more of a cool down, where that's when things start to look kind of gloomy, because right now we're in this Goldilocks scenario. Everything's looking kind of in line with what the Fed wants. But what happens when we get a little bit too much of what the Fed wants? What happens when the economy cools down a little bit too much? And so we kind of got a little bit of a taste with that with the ADP job reports numbers that we got today, where we saw again the ADP numbers are showing that the labor markets are weakening, right? And so what we're seeing now is the market saying, okay, wait a minute, things are looking a little bit too weak. And so, of course, we still have some more job data that's going to provide a lot more noise for the markets. And the reason I say noise, this is something I covered within the Push and Profit private group, but there's been a lot of revisions from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. And so it's ultimately going to provide more noise and not really any accurate depictions of what's going on in the economy. And so that's something that we have coming up this week. But I want us to kind of pay attention to what went on today. For example, today we saw the Bank of Canada pause on its monetary policies. They didn't hike rates, they didn't cut rates, they just paused. And I know we're in America. Obviously I'm in America. A lot of my viewers are in America, and so some of you guys may be wondering, but why are you talking about the Bank of Canada, the Central Bank of Canada? But ultimately, the reason why we want to see what's going on with Canada is because what we typically do here in the States tends to follow what the central bankers in Canada are doing. And so this is in sync what most likely is going to take place next next week. Of course, next week we have our decision on monetary policy with the Federal Reserve, which is the central bank for us. And most likely the outlook is that they're going to pause, right? They're not going to hike, I don't believe. They're not going to cut just yet. It's very kind of apparent that most likely they're going to pause, as everything's been going in their favor, and they're still, looking at lagging data, and so they can't justify cutting just yet, but they also can't justify hiking just yet as well. Although we may hear some more hawkish rhetoric from them, and that's probably to kind of cool off inflation expectation within the public, but ultimately I believe that we're going to pause next week when, we make our decision, in the United States on what goes on with monetary policy. And I think that's going to be a bullish catalyst going into next week. But of course, we still have, again, this week being a little bit more choppy with the job data that's going to still continue rolling out. But going back to the technicals, I want you guys to take a look at this chart right over here, which is the Dow Jones, or in reality, it doesn't even have to be the Dow Jones. It could be the overall S&P 500 or the NASDAQ index ETF, whatever you prefer. If it's the NASDAQ, the S&P 500, the Dow Jones. Right now, we're just looking at the Dow Jones. And what we see is that, obviously, look, November was a huge rally. And so now we're seeing the Dow Jones have its third day down. And this is kind of, it makes sense because you can't just have the market continuously going up. Yes, there's those individuals who say every single day Tesla stock's going to go up, Tesla stock's going to go up. And I know Tesla's not in the Dow Jones. I just happen to have a screenshot of this. But you could look at the S&P 500 or the QQQ. We did very well, for November, but again, you just can't continue going up in a linear line. If that were to happen, then everyone would be millionaires in just 1 month. And so this is in line. Don't get too worried that Tesla isn't going up every single day. It's most likely going to be ebbing and flowing, especially as we saw November being such a good month. So we're going to have a lot of choppiness, and I don't expect things to go to the moon. And I know you have those individuals on YouTube where every single video on Tesla, like I said earlier, they try to spin it off into something positive. I mean, I saw someone today talk about how Marquise Brownlee is a just popular YouTuber, and how he recently made a video about the Cybertruck and how it's one of his most viewed videos. And so because it's one of his most viewed videos, it's essentially going to make Tesla stock go upwards. This is really bullish because it shows the interest in the Cybertrucks. And look, I do like alternative data, right? I look at the fundamentals, I look at the economic data, I look at the technicals, and I also look at alternative data, meaning data that's not your traditional data. I don't neglect looking at other things that could kind of prove something else. And so, yeah, I do agree that there's a lot of interest for the Cybertrucks, but I can't justify here making a video saying, oh, look, this YouTuber made a video about the Cybertrucks and there's a lot of interest, there's a lot of views, so Tesla's going to go to the moon. Look, I can't do that. Yes, I do believe that the Cybertrucks are going to be something that's going to help Tesla stock tremendously going into the future. But right now, they still haven't delivered that many Cybertrucks, and they're still not going to be, profitable on them just yet. It's going to take quite I believe it's like 18 months for it to ramp up into obviously scaling up and actually being a great product for Tesla. And so, yeah, there's a lot of interest, and I know maybe those individuals are very forward-looking, and that's fine. It's fine to be forward-looking, but I just can't justify making a video saying, oh, look, Cybertrucks have a lot of hype, so Tesla stock's going to continue going up. Look, at the end of the day, we have to be aware of what's currently taking place. And again, I want to reiterate that I myself am bullish for Tesla stock in the long term. I'm not someone who hates Tesla, of course. I'm not trying to bash on Tesla. In fact, I recently shared on my YouTube channel in the community post this meme right over here, where essentially you have some individuals in suits by this German car saying, well, we have better panel gaps, and they're kind of pointing to this car by Tesla that's flying in the air. And ultimately what it shows is that despite Tesla being much more progressive and having a bunch of other capabilities that is far more superior to some of these legacy autos, they will point at anything just to say, oh, well, that's an issue, right? So, with the Cybertrucks, one of the things that people keep saying is, oh, it looks ugly and there's panel gaps. But at the same time, we saw a Cybertruck recently just win a race against a Urus, a Lamborghini Urus, and also beating a Porsche 911 while also towing a Porsche 911. And so the Cybertruck is definitely a great product, and I'm definitely a fan of it. I myself plan to get one in the future, although that's going to take some time as they're still far behind on the individuals who already have their reservations. I say this because I'm not against Tesla. I just want us to be aware of what is taking place. Now, with that said, I want to point out to what's taking place next week, as we have on December 12th the Consumer Price Index, which is an inflationary gauge, and this is something that the Federal Reserve watches heavily, and so this is going to help them make their decision ultimately on the day after when they make a decision on monetary policy. And my belief is that most likely the Fed is going to pause, and this is going to provide a bit of a positive catalyst for the markets, although I don't believe this is going to have the markets kind of go to the moon, okay? I want us to be realistic. The idea is that December is most likely going to close a little bit higher, but there is going to be a lot of choppiness. But at the end of the day, we have to wait for the data to roll out. I'm not a psychic. I don't have a crystal ball. I just simply watch the markets from a multitude of different perspectives, looking at economic data, technicals, fundamentals, and even alternative data. But I don't sit here and try to point anything out to make it seem more bullish than it actually is. But with that said, I just want to give a friendly reminder that if you guys are not subscribed to the channel, consider tapping that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any future videos. And also make sure to check out the links in the description below, because one of the links is going to be a link for my free weekly market post insights. And so if you enjoy my video, then or my videos plural, then consider checking out that link, because it's free. Every single week I send out an email on what I see going on with the overall economy. And so with that said, guys, before you guys go, consider watching this next video right over here, and I'll see you guys on that next video. Take care, guys.